This is Health Unfiltered, the podcast where we cut through the bullshit and get honest about fitness, nutrition, and mental wellness.
Welcome, Tatiana. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited to get into physiotherapy and yoga and learn more about you. Do you want to start off by telling us a little more bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Oh, do you want the short version or the long version?
Whatever feels best.
Honestly, I just, since I was a kid, loved movement. Um, for the longest time since I can remember, my mom would, hop on those 80s fitness videos. I remember one was called Fitness with Love, and we have like home videos of me like guiding my brothers on like crunches and planks and stuff like that. So really just growing up with like naturally wanting to be active, but didn't really play competitive sport or anything until I found hip hop because my mom forced me to join dance class in grade 9, the age of 14. And I was like
Hmm.
mortified because I was a beginner and had to start with 8-year-olds at the time, but fell in love with dance and movement. And then through that class, found hip hop, started to perform and teach in university, started loving running, and then I hurt myself not wearing good shoes.
Oh
And
no.
my doctor at the time sent me for a bone scan. I had bilateral fractures in my
Oh.
lower legs, and then the doctor was like, "You need to see physio," and I was like, "What's physio?" I'd never didn't know that was a thing. And then from there, I was like, "This is so fun! Like you can have a profession where you teach people how to move their bodies and be active." So that's kind of how I found physiotherapy. And then from there, just sort of naturally progressing my own training with running, and then going through my first pregnancy. I couldn't run after 4 months. I found yoga, and
Hmm.
yoga was a great way to move my body physically in the beginning. But then over the years, 2 kids, 3 kids, I really truly started to embrace the mental sort of mindset, mindfulness side of yoga. And I mean, this is like a 20-year sort of story, but basically every client I work with, whether it's in person or virtually online, we do movement, but it's very intentional and mindful because it's so powerful the how we heal our bodies through our mind body connection.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, when I first heard physio or physiotherapy, I was like, what's that? And I realized it's physical therapy. We call it physical therapy here in the States.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So, how did you first get into yoga? Was that from your
Um,
injury? You were looking for
yeah, I
something to
wasn't
do to
injured per se. I had to kind of dabbled in it, but it wasn't like something I was consistent with, just
hmm
in my early 20s and that kind of thing. But because I was pregnant and couldn't run after, I think I was like 4 or 5 months when things started to feel heavy,
Yeah.
I started to consistently go to yoga class.
hmm
And through that, just started to really love the practice. Ended up doing my yoga teacher training when my firstborn was I was on mat leave, and just wanted to dive deeper into it. And then naturally, that just kind of complemented my physical therapy practice. Um, that's how I came to really start practicing yoga myself. But I will say, even throughout my yoga journey, in the beginning, and like most people, you seek it for stretching or strengthening or balance, the physical stuff, right?
hmm
But there is such a powerful side of yoga, which is the mindfulness, the stillness, sitting with discomfort, pausing, feeling your breath. And last year, and we can talk about this more if you want to, but I really suffered a big running injury, and I really had to use my mind, like the yoga mindful stuff, to really heal my
hmm
hip. I had to do the physical stuff too, of course, but um there's a side that I think a lot of people maybe don't know about, and it feels woo woo and like out there, but it's real. How we think and how we talk to our bodies, and our every cell in our body is listening. That is a very inside out and true, complete way of healing ourselves.
Yeah, definitely that mind body connection is so powerful in so many different ways. And it goes back and forth from what you eat, it makes you
Yeah.
feel, and what you do, it makes you how you feel and your energy levels, and it's really incredible. So yeah, let's talk more about your injury and how you injured your hip, you said?
So last year, I was training for a marathon here in Ottawa. It's called Ottawa Race Weekend, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
Boston qualifier. And I was just sort of along for the ride, to be honest. My friend who I run with, uh, Boston was on her bucket list, and it wasn't on my radar.
The Boston
And again,
Marathon.
yeah, and it's one of those things where in hindsight it makes so much sense, but in the moment, like everything I'm telling you now, it's just because I've reflected so much. So in the
Yeah.
moment, we were going to train for the half marathon because we missed it during COVID. We had signed up for 2020. Obviously, it
Hmm.
didn't happen, and we were going
Yeah.
to do the half. She sends me a screenshot of the full marathon, and I was like, that's not what we agreed on. But I was like, oh well, whatever. So I just signed up, and she was really, diligent about hiring a run coach, and she did it the right way. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that as a physio, as a yoga, like all the things that I know, I just sort of maybe didn't listen to my own body as much as I should have. And I've
Yeah.
always had this tighter right hip, and I do it in quotations, I'll explain in a second. But I just like didn't really listen to it. It was in hindsight talking to me, right? This tighter
Hmm.
right hamstring, my tighter right hip. But I just trained for this marathon. And then because I had to put in all this time running, I kind of, other things fell to the wayside, like my strength training, maybe even some of my yoga practice for me, right? It's different when I'm
Hmm.
guiding someone. Truly practicing for me was falling kind of to the wayside because I was running so much. And we ran a 30K practice race in Hamilton, Ontario. So that was about 2 months before the full marathon. And there was just this perfect storm of events. Like I was the driver, so I drove the 6 hours. We ran it. My whole right leg was like cramping up. I came 10 minutes behind her, so that
Oh,
wasn't a good sign. Yeah,
yeah.
for anyone who's listening who's a runner, like that's a big gap for like
Hmm.
what was targeted, right? And then I drove home and my hip was so sore. And then my husband and I got on an airplane that night to for a trip to San Diego. So there's just already like things that were brewing, then the race, then a lot of sitting, and then I continued to train. And you know what? My hip was like, you're done. No.
Mm-mm, no
And
more.
no more. So I came back, we were winter training, Maggie and I, so this is my run friend, we were like 15K out. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it home. Like
Oh
I
no.
was like literally limping home. And yeah,
Ouch.
from there, it took me a good 7 months to come back. And it was tough. Like,
Mm.
I was devastated. People who knew me, like all my clients, family, what happened to you? Like, I thought you were training for a marathon, and here I am. Can't even walk down the street, right? Without my right leg like limping heavily.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was pretty hard. But now that I've come back, I had to do a lot of physical healing, of course, and a lot of mental healing too. And that's the energetic stuff that I was talking about in the beginning. Like I really had to talk to my hip and flip my mindset from this sucks to okay, let's get curious. What can I do today? I know I can't run. I can't even do a brisk walk, but I can hop on the bike and it doesn't hurt. And I can bike hard and I can do
Hmm.
intervals and I can still pump my blood and feel good. Okay, that's fine. Can I do this? Can I do that? And there was a lot of curiosity. And yes, I had some fear, of course, like, is it my joint? Like, what have I done to myself? But knowing that I had moments of no pain with certain different movements, I just had to hone that, harness it. And then when I was resting, when I was, say, meditating or doing practicing my breathing and mindfulness, I just sent that hip like a lot of gratitude and love for what it could do. Um, and that's not easy, but it does, like, it's a practice that takes well, it just takes practice.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the missing things that sometimes we have, even in my practice as a physiotherapist. We're so focused on the physical, like, let's mobilize the joint, let's strip the tissues, let's do all
Hmm.
these fancy gadgets, right? Modalities, ultrasound, dry needling, IFC, current. But sometimes we just need to really kind of give our bodies that pause and compassion and love, and like give it a chance to heal.
Yeah.
But with our minds, right? Like that mind
Hmm.
body connection, it's listening. The cells need you to be there for it.
Definitely. And that injury to your hip, what did you have like an official diagnosis? Did you
Yeah,
tear something or?
so in the end, it was, I don't know if you know your hip muscles very well, or the listener, but we have a hip flexor that's small but can wreak havoc, and it's called your
Hmm.
tensor fascia lata, TFL for short, and it lies under the iliotibial band, so it's under the ITB, and
Hmm.
that, in hindsight, was my root cause. It was always a bit tweaky, tight, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. But then it translated, because I was putting all that mileage for marathon training, it started to affect like my deep glutes, my right hamstring,
Mm-hmm.
some of my adductors, like your groin muscles, sort
Hmm.
of into the pelvis, inner thigh area. So it kind of snowballed into this huge thing. But in the end, it wasn't my joint. I didn't have arthritis. It was just like all the hip muscles around my right side were like, no, you can't do this anymore. So yeah, that's what happened. And honestly, a lot of injuries I see, it's muscular, but it can feel pretty bad. It can make you feel
Hmm.
like so scared that it's your joint, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's
I experienced it, so I know how it feels.
right. Yeah. It's so interesting, paying attention to your body and just listening and taking care to not overuse muscles that are sore or tight or hurting like that. I had a similar experience with my knee.
Yep.
I injured my knee at work. I was crouching down. I was drilling into into a post, and I kind of lost my balance, and I twisted and fell, and my knee hurt, and it didn't hurt too much. So I just kind of shrugged it off and kept working, and then over the next few weeks, I kept working, kept doing stuff, and I kept like re-hurting it, and eventually
Yeah.
it turned into a meniscus tear.
Oh no.
And
Yeah.
now I realize that if only I would have taken it seriously and worn a brace and taken it easy, I could have avoided that tear. And it's just so important to
Yeah.
listen to your body.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that we sort of miss the mark on as a society, is that we push through, and when our body's whispering, it's telling us something. So I'm a big
Yeah.
advocate for preventative health. I
Hmm.
tell anyone I know, really, don't wait till you have pain and you're debilitated to come see me or any other practitioner, right? Like if it's
Yeah.
something just feels off, even compare left to right side, right?
Hmm.
Even myself, I should have probably paid more attention to that right tighter side
Yeah.
before I like put in all that mileage, right? But what's really cool is, and I hope that your tear is better now, our
It
bodies do
is.
heal.
Hmm.
Good. And so your knee is better, like even the meniscus tear can get better. I now don't have that sensation in my right hip anymore. The one that I would always be like, oh, I have a tighter right hip, probably because I'm right hand dominant, right legged, whatever. I don't even have that anymore because I gave it so much attention in my 7 months of rehabbing it. that now it doesn't have that imbalance, which is so great. And actually, I ran a marathon this year. I really ran it just to do it, like because I could and I felt freedom in my body to run again.
Mhm.
And I qualified for Boston.
That's
So
awesome.
so
Congratulations.
that thank you. So that is just icing on the cake, right? Like it wasn't my intention, but I just felt good enough that it happened, and now I get to go with my friends. So it's just like it feels so good. Like all that hard work is like paying off, and I know for some people it feels like 7 months, like that's a long time, but your future self, 7 months is like a dot. It's not the years like that you're throwing away. It's just a little bit.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
for those who might feel like they're in injury or pain and it's like so hard to get off the couch, you feel like you need to keep resting.
Hmm.
It really is important to start moving in any way, shape, or form you can. That isn't going to
Yes,
make you feel worse.
it's critical.
Movement.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
ended up getting surgery on my knee. Um,
Okay.
they were able to save the cartilage, but they had to
Okay.
sew back together the meniscus. And the
Okay. Great.
doctor was like, stay off it for, what was it, 6 weeks and let it heal. And um, a lot of the times they tell you not to do anything, even after the
Ugh.
6 weeks. And it's like, no, you gotta move. You gotta keep doing
Yeah.
things. Even when I
You
was
do.
recovering from my knee, I was
Mm-hmm.
still doing whatever I could,
That's good.
upper body workouts and just trying to
Yes.
be
Yes.
mindful of my eating um
Yeah.
and just as
Joshua,
soon
I
as
love that. How did you even
yeah.
know to do that? Because I find a lot of people have sort of doctor said like don't do like, but what they actually mean is like don't stress the surgery need, right? But
Hmm.
you can still, like you said, move your upper body. Like why can't you do bicep curls and triceps? And do you know
Right.
what I mean? Like how did you know?
I think it was more intuitive. I mean, I've always been
Okay.
anti-authority, I guess, and I take everything, with a grain of salt, even from people wearing lab coats or,
Yep.
doctors' coats or whatever. And I knew, like, because I had been working out for a few years at that point, and I knew I didn't want to
Okay.
lose my progress. And I'm like, I can't
Good.
stop. I got to keep going. And of
Yeah, yeah,
course,
yeah.
I would ice it and, put the heat pack on it on my knee to help
Mm-hmm.
the ice, of course, for cutting down the inflammation and the heat to get more blood flow to the area to help heal. And yeah, it's just so critical to keep moving. And then even like the day after I was, okay to start walking again, I would use the crutches and try to move my leg and use my leg as much as I could to start rebuilding the muscles. What other
Yeah.
what other kinds of therapy do you recommend for people to try to recover faster from injuries?
So I'm a big fan of any therapy, any therapist that you can find that's gonna give you the tools that are gonna, like, it's not just seeing them for that window of time. Home exercises is really the key. You go to see them for the techniques and the check-ins and like corrections if you're doing the form correctly or the exercises correctly, the
Hmm.
frequency, whatever. So the check-ins are really important, right? Um, but it's really about active therapy.
Putting in the work.
That's how putting in the work. I really am a firm, like it's just out there in the research if people are skeptical, but even just in my own body and with my clients, and then during COVID, people couldn't come see me. We were shut down, but they got better faster actually because all they could do was like listen to my guidance and move online, and they were like, "Oh, like I can't believe how good I feel." And all we did was move. And I'm like, yep, it's pretty cool, right?
That's
So
incredible.
I wouldn't say it's like one thing, like I've got a great chiropractor, I've got a great osteopath, I've got a great physiotherapist that I see, but it's not about which one. It's like they have to fit with your, like, just like that good feeling, right? You get energy vibes from people. And also really important that it's active therapy, not, you need to
Mhm.
come see me once a month to get adjustments or like put you back in alignment. Like that's not a thing. But someone who's going to help you move properly and, align with your health goals. That's the key right there.
Definitely. What are some other techniques people could do at home to help recovery? I know I saw some things on your website that were helpful, like cupping. Is that is that like when you put some whiskey in a cup and you sip on it so you can feel better?
Well, I mean, you could try that. Um, I did a cupping workshop, I guess. Yeah, it's Michael Phelps. He's probably the most famous guy with the octopus marks. That's
Mm-hmm.
a form of it's a form of soft tissue muscle therapy. It's a modality where I think it's neat because it pulls the muscle up and away and kind of gets at the fascia and the layers. So that's what cupping is. Some people use traditional Chinese cupping where they heat them.
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't personally have those tools, so I can't speak to it. But yeah, definitely like explore different options. But the main thing is like to get the benefits, like sustainable and actual change, is to move your own body.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
just kidding about the whiskey, but
Oh,
not really. I've done cupping. I use the silicone cups. They're pretty
okay.
convenient. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I have some.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great like self-treatment too, right? Like you could buy them off whatever and pop them on. Like if you've got a sore lower back, you can buy them all, have your partner do it or your kid, and then you can even just leave the cup on your back, and it kind of has this suction effect.
Yeah.
They say it brings blood flow
Mm-hmm.
and
That's what I've
just sort of
heard.
like move cells around. Maybe I don't know all the research behind it, but honestly, if it feels good, why not, right?
It seems to help. I've got really tight calves. I think I have a mild case of oh God, what's it called now? Um, compartment syndrome, where the
Okay.
fascia is tight, and so the muscle pushes on
Yeah.
the fascia, and you have that really painful feeling. And so I found that the cupping really helps with that, especially
Hmm.
the active cupping, where you put a little bit of oil on there and you move it around, and it hurts when you're doing it, but afterwards the relief of the pressure is really incredible in what it can do for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I I've definitely done that before, and it does kind of, it's like a really deep massage, right? But different because
Yeah, yeah.
it's pulling up. So it has
Hmm.
a different kind of discomfort, but it's definitely. Oh,
Uh-oh, we lost her. There you are. Give you a second to get your audio back up. I'm outside today because the power's out at my place. So I'm sitting here in the sun, and actually it's getting a little warm. I think I'm gonna take my hoodie off.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. It's getting a little
Perfect.
warm out here, so I took my sweater off.
Nice.
All right,
We're
we're back.
back. Sorry about that. I had to plug my computer in.
Yeah, no worries. Um, so where were we? We were just talking about cupping
Yep.
and how can yoga be good for recovery?
Great question. So, well, let's ask you. Do you practice yoga or have you practiced yoga?
I do. I love yoga. I try to do it at least once a week, and I find
Good.
that it really helps me with tight muscles and my core, and
Yeah.
just doing something hard. Having that sense of accomplishment can really be beneficial for your mindset and the deep
Hmm.
breathing. It all works together. I know there's so much more to yoga than just the poses, and we had someone on pretty recently. She went over. It was Shalani. she went over all 8 branches of yoga, and I really had no idea that it went so deep. It was really
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I won't go through that then, but as a therapist who does pretty much yoga with everyone that I treat, even if I don't call it yoga and I sneak it in and say we're doing mindful movement,
Hmm.
yoga really is about the practice of tuning into your own body. It's not about touching your toes. It's not about looking like your neighbor in the yoga class or even the yoga instructor, right? It's really about listening to your body. And when you're moving through the asanas, the poses, really feeling the right spot. So there's, for example, a lot of people hate pigeon actually because it hurts their knees or it pinches their front of hip. Pigeon is really about opening like the outer hip. So if you're
Hmm.
not feeling it, if you don't feel it in the right spot, you probably need to modify. And that can look like a bunch of different versions of pigeon, and that's just fine. So really the practice of yoga is about tuning in, getting a little curious, where is there imbalances between the two sides, what's coming up even emotionally.
Hmm.
Sometimes when we're sitting in a tough pose, what's coming up, and then how do we pull it back to the present moment, right? How do we focus and stay present with our bodies? There's a lot of different styles of yoga. There's even breath work yoga where you're not really moving. You're just
Hmm.
holding the posture for a very long time. Stillness, yin, they call it, right? Yin yoga.
Yep.
So many different styles. But I think if anyone is listening and they're just a beginner, the best way to approach it is finding a class where there's movement. Because often when we're new to something like this, it's really hard to just sit in stillness. So like a
Yeah.
hatha flow, a flow class, not too fast paced, but enough that you, because when we move our bodies, it gives our mind something to pay attention to, which is why I love
Hmm.
doing it with clients. Otherwise, we tend to be such a busy go 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 society. But if we're moving the body slowly and with the right instructor, you can really tune into the words and the guidance of what I'm supposed to be feeling in my body. Your body's going to tell you lots of things, and even just the motion, the practice of it, you're lubricating your joints, you're moving your fascia, you're stretching your muscles, you're strengthening it. I love yoga too because it makes you lengthen your muscle while demanding it to contract. So that's very powerful actually for injury prevention. So here in
Hmm.
Canada, we get lots of snow and ice. And if you slip on it and you have to catch yourself, that's recipe for a tear on, like,
Yeah.
say your hamstrings, let's say. But if you've been in
Hmm.
yoga a lot and you like have been in those weird 3D positions, if you slip on ice, you're less likely to be that injured because your body's been there. So I love the preventative injury component that comes with yoga practice.
Yeah. You're stronger and you have more flexibility that can really help you avoid injury. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to get into nutrition a little bit. I know that you like baking and cooking. What kind of nutrition do you recommend for your clients?
That just depends on the client. Usually, like I don't have a background in like nutrition school or
Right.
dietitian school, but I love food and I love, like you said, baking and cooking. And I mean, I read a lot and I work with a lot of different practitioners too. And for the most part, eating, this is where I think yoga can be really cool if you like deepen your practice, is that when you're mindful and you tune in, even your body, like your tummy, your gut tells you what you're craving.
Mm,
And that comes with a lot of time and practice, right? Like, it took me a long time to get where I am today, but it's easier, so much easier for me now not to go and grab the sugary snack or the carbohydrate quick fix because I know that I don't actually want it. Like there's an intuitive, mindful, like, can't think of the right word right now, but because of how deeply connected I am to my body, down to my stomach and my gut, like I kind of know what I want to eat. And most of the time it isn't the junk. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have treats once in a while, like I don't deprive myself, but like, you really want to make sure, as even especially as a woman entering her 40s, right? Perimenopause. Joshua, you don't have to worry about this, but we do. We really need to pay attention to eating enough protein and
Mm-hmm.
getting all our vitamins in, vitamin D. In Canada, we don't get enough vitamin D 3 out of the 4 seasons of the year. So we just have to
Yeah.
make sure that we're getting all the right things into our bodies to fuel our daily lives, to fuel our runs, our workouts, even just like day to day things. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, do I have a specific, like when clients come, what do I eat? Not really, but it's really about like balance. But beyond just balance, it's like making sure we get all these like nutritional needs, right down to the vitamins. And then protein's a big one. A lot of people don't eat enough protein. And carbs are not the enemy. I do want to say that because I find a lot of, there's so much out there with keto dieting and this and that, but
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you don't want to eat like white carbs and sugary things all the time or at all, but complex carbs, things like sweet potatoes, butternut squash. If you're okay with gluten, like a really hearty sourdough seedy bread, like
Mm-hmm.
those are okay, and we need it. Our bodies need it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
really love that you touched on protein because I am a big advocate for protein. I am just in the final stages of editing my cookbook, the Protein
Woo!
Lifestyle Cookbook.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the third series in the Protein Lifestyle series. And so I'm really excited about that. But one thing you didn't mention was fat. What's your take on fat, dietary fat?
Yeah, we need it. Absolutely. And I don't shot I put butter on things. I cook with like
Is
coconut
that
oil, rapeseed
real
oil,
butter, not margarine?
real butter. No, no. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Anything that you like can't pronounce, probably you don't want to buy it, right? So margarine has like all these weird ingredients. Um, yeah, and anything diet, like Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, like
Hmm.
if you're gonna have something like that, your body probably just wants a hit of that craving. Just get the Coke. Like, don't drink the chemicals. Why would you
Right.
do that? So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. I know there's like people on the other side of it, like, well, there's no research that says aspartame causes this, but I personally, I just don't want weird things in my body that aren't from the natural, like coming from Earth, right?
Hmm. They think that's a safe bet. I'm a huge advocate of whole foods and using
Yeah.
whole foods for your cooking. Definitely. There's essential proteins and essential fats, but there's really no essential carbs. And, everyone's different and we need, the glucose that comes from carbohydrates as one source of energy for our bodies. But we can
Mm-hmm.
also, get energy from fatty acids. So like you
Yep.
were saying, like the keto diet, if you're not eating those carbohydrates, your body can make um, glucose in glucose neogenesis and can create the glucose that you need to think and to, use your muscles and function properly. But like I said, everyone's different, and especially women
Mm-hmm.
with the hormone cycles, you really need to do what's best for you. But I
That's
know
right.
that if people are trying to lose weight, should definitely cut down on the carbs because if you're, storing fat, you're not burning it, and that can be really
That's
challenging
a
for people.
tricky one if you can't sustain it. So I do think that can backfire if it's not something that can be sustained. Um, that's a tricky one. And again, I'm not a nutritionist.
Yeah.
So, but I have colleagues who are. And it's one of those things where um, if you cut out the carbs completely, but you can't do it forever, then it can backfire, right? I don't know if you've
Hmm.
experienced that yourself or have worked with people like that, but I think that's a tricky one. Like, unless you're going to go keto for the rest of your life, how do you reintroduce it without putting it all back on? Maybe
Yeah,
you know.
you definitely need to find something that's sustainable. I tried the carnivore diet in January for World Carnivore Month, and
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I felt pretty good on it. I did cheat a little bit. I ate some blueberries at night for that, that sweet craving. And
Mm-hmm.
I the benefits that I experienced were really interesting. My cravings for starchy carbs really kind of went away. I didn't really crave that stuff anymore, and I was craving a lot of meat and fat. And after January, I started reincorporating different food groups back into my diet, slowly, one at a time to try to figure out, how they affected me. And it's really incredible what you can learn from trying an elimination diet like that. And so now
Well,
I
what did
know
you learn?
well, I know that if I eat like rice or potatoes or too much bread, that I really feel sluggish and I get brain fog, and it really just doesn't work for me. And so now I primarily eat animal products like beef, chicken, pork, fish, eggs, dairy, and then I eat fruit as well. So I
Okay. There's
find
carbs in fruit, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and it
So you're
comes
not,
with the fiber and the other
that's it,
nutrients
right.
that
Yeah.
processed carbohydrates don't have. And so I
Yeah.
find that
Yeah.
to be perfect for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
That's
that's
great.
what I that's what I've learned and
Yeah.
do.
I think that's the key there is like you try and it has to agree with you. Like it has to,
Yeah.
your body has to respond well, including your mind, right? And if you can sustain it and it feels good, then, but it takes time. It takes trial and error, I think, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing is to start slow when you're trying anything new, whether it's yoga or a diet or working out, starting slow. Don't shock your body. Try to get used to it. And like you
Yeah.
said, find something that's sustainable that you can do long term.
Hmm. That's right.
So what do you like to do for fun up there in Canada?
I love running, as you know.
Right?
I have three kids. They all play competitive soccer, so we spend a lot of time with other soccer parents cheering them on. Very
Hmm.
it's actually so it's like a very cool feeling to watch your kids excel at something they love so much. We do a lot of that. Yeah, just being with my body and my kids active and hmm, I don't know what else I like to do. Cooking and baking and hanging out with friends when I can with any extra pockets of time.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you do any skiing?
yes, although we haven't had the best winter in the last little while. We used to get
Yeah.
tons of snow in Ottawa, but yeah, we do ski. We ski, but it's just a little bit sad with climate change how little snow we're getting. So I'm hopeful that we'll get more this year. But last year, I think we got like just one big dump, and then the local ski hills had to work hard to make snow.
Yeah. Are there any good uh like yoga poses or other stretches or strength training that's good for preparing for skiing?
Yeah, there's tons. Chair pose is a good one. Any of
Hmm.
the glutes and ankle, hip, knee strengthening ones. Any of the warriors are great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, single leg balance because when you're leaning to carve, right, you're gonna gotta be more on one leg. Um, even just a sun salutation, going through that sequence and
Hmm.
having one leg back, easy twist. Really, any sort of flow that a sun salutation. I know there's like a sun salutation A, B, C, D. Any of those would be great to prepare our body for skiing because it puts you in all these different directions, and that's what is probably going to happen when you ski because you never know
Right.
if you have to suddenly stop, take a tumble. Like these are things that, again, is going to save your knee or save your shoulder
Hmm.
because your body's been there before.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Hmm.
definitely. So as far as exercise goes, I know you love running and yoga. Do you do any like strength training?
I do. I have a Peloton. I
Hmm.
actually bought it when I couldn't run. So I bought a secondhand bike and we already had the membership since COVID because my husband and I just used it for the weight. It's just easier to work out at home than carving out more time to get to ourselves to a gym. So we do weight training at home. And so that's mainly my forms of exercise running, yoga, strength training, and sometimes the bike.
Nice. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
strength training is so important, especially the older we get. Help our bones stay strong,
totally.
build
Yes.
skeletal muscle. It's really incredible. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a lot of people are worried that they're gonna get all ripped and look like a bodybuilder, but it really takes a lot of dedication to look like that. And just doing, a few days a week of strength training can go such a long way for longevity and your mental health. I think it's so important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that is such an old misconception. The whole bodybuilder thing.
Hmm.
You would have to train so much and gonna pop outside. Yeah,
Get some of that vitamin D.
it would have to take you, yeah, I don't even know. Like you would have to lift so much, so heavy. And it would be explosive reps to like really kind of rip your muscles enough that they need to rebuild that much bigger, right? So those
Hmm.
tiny, when you strength train sort of in the like low to moderate way, most people won't, most people are so afraid of discomfort that they wouldn't even lift that much to get there. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that, when you like do a bunch of squats, even like without weights, and you feel
Hmm.
sore like the next couple of days when you like squat to go to the bathroom or sit down on the couch, right? Like that isn't going to be enough to like make your bum so big or your quad so big and your thigh so big. So in order to get there, you'd be like so uncomfortable. So I think that for anyone listening who's like kind of worried, it's only just going to make you stronger. And um muscle does weigh a little more, so don't be afraid of your scale per se, but just think about how
Yes.
your clothes fit, right? Like if your
Hmm.
clothes fit well, you feel strong and your body feels tight, like that's not tight like tight tension, but like fit tight. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So many
Like
people
it
are
feels.
obsessed with the scale and their weight when it's really not about that. Like you said, muscle weighs more. And it's really the body fat percentage I think is important, and like you said, how your clothes fit and how you feel. Those should really be the
Yeah,
markers of health.
absolutely. We don't have a scale at home and it doesn't, like I don't even think twice because it's really about how I feel, and
Hmm.
I think clothing is such a easy measure, right? Like how your clothes fit day to day can tell you a lot.
Yeah, they definitely can.
Hmm.
So are there any podcasts that you enjoy listening to?
I that's a great question. Actually, I've been listening to this one called Curious Neuron. It's it's a colleague of mine, a friend of mine. She does
Hmm.
like emotional regulation for parents. And she asked me to be on it to talk about mindfulness and movement. And
Oh,
then
nice.
I've just been learning so much from her and all her special guests about parenting. So if any parents are listening, you can check out Curious Neuron. I listen to a business podcast called Burnout to All Out.
Hmm.
Um, Melissa Hanault is a female entrepreneur. She's like I really love what she speaks of and speaks about. A lot of her business coaching is around like health and how you treat your own body and you know um it just really resonates with me. And there's another one called Energy Matters. And that
Hmm.
one's a bit more like yoga. They talk about chakras and energy and vibrations, and that's kind of cool because obviously I love that stuff. Yeah, and in terms of my own practice, I use Insight Timer. Um, it's an app that has a lot of great, like thousands and thousands of mindfulness and meditation guides. So if anyone's curious about being guided, there was one on there I used for my hip. It was called Deep Healing, and I would put it on every night, and it's about 30 minutes. I'd fall asleep to it, but it's
Hmm.
like basically like guiding you on focusing your mental energy on a part of your body that you're trying to heal, or an emotional part of your body you're trying to overcome, or a trauma that maybe you need to face or heal. And it just sort of like softly guides you and helps you stay present. So those are kind of my part of my tools for me.
Very cool. Have you heard of the Huberman Lab with Andrew Huberman?
Yes, I haven't listened, but I've heard of it.
I highly recommend his podcast. Sometimes he goes really into depth and really the minutia, the science behind stuff, and sometimes it's a lot. It's really high level, but he does offer like actionable tips and things that you can do in all areas of health. I really
Oh,
find that,
cool.
yeah,
Awesome.
very, yeah. So, you have a practice of helping people. How can people get a hold of you and learn more about you?
Yeah, I recently, in the last 2 years, launched an online program called the Move with Ease Method. It was
Hmm.
born out of a need I saw for, like I said, a little bit beyond just the physical things that I could help people with. So it really encompasses movement, mindfulness, meditation, and just deeply connecting, helping people connect their mind to their bodies through the practice of yoga. But because people kind of sometimes shy from the word yoga, if you look me up, it'll say mindful movement. And it's basically to just feel good in your body and connect to the deepest layers of your soul and your actual body, inner core, breath, and then build it out. I equivalent it to or equate it to that our body's like a house. So it doesn't matter how strong you make the walls and the doors and the windows, you really need a strong foundation, or else
Yes.
things get overworked and crumble,
Hmm.
um, which is what I kind of see in my practice. So I built this program, 12-week program, to kind of help people really truly connect deeply. And yeah, there's no reason that, entering our 40s and beyond means we have to slow down or not do fun things and participate in all the activities of life. So this is a program that will help support your fun lifestyle, quality of life, not just longevity. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm always happy to chat. There's no pressure, obviously, to work with me. We'll just see if we're a good fit.
Awesome. And what's the website?
The best way is probably to reach me on Instagram at
Okay.
Tatianna Graham Inc.
Hmm.
I do have a website too. It's tgphysiotherapy.ca. You can find the program under Mindful Movement Coaching, because otherwise the other stuff is coming to book an appointment with me. But if you're not in Ottawa, that's tough. Although you could,
Hmm.
like we could do online, but really reaching me through my program, Tatianna Graham Inc. is the best way.
Great. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and I learned a lot.
Thanks, Joshua, for having me.
Definitely. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.